point that you've previously pointed out, that it is, in the first instance, the role of Parliament to hold an executive to account in any member state or here in Europe. In 2023, you criticised the Commission regarding the draft EU-Mercosur additional instrument, not publishing it, and in particular the lack of publication of the updated sustainability assessment. That was followed, of course, by the criticism over the failure to publish some of the Pfizer negotiations, which criticism was the basis of the General Court's judgment, which is now under appeal. You had, was it last month, criticism of the Commission President for the lack of documentation around a visit to the Greek Prime Minister's holiday home, followed, I think, the next week by criticism for the lack of transparency around the meeting with the Tunisian President. At the very least, it doesn't seem to be a Commission President committed to transparency and openness, which are, of course, essential to the functioning of any democracy, at the very least. But I suppose, what advice would you give this committee and this Parliament in carrying out its fundamental role? It shouldn't all fall to the Ombudsman's office to do this. It certainly shouldn't fall to the courts, or at least not in the first instance. So what advice would you give this Parliament in carrying out its role? And then, I suppose, if there's time to answer a follow-up question, it would be, in my own country, which is also yours, Ireland, that there's a use of post-its. They stick a post-it on the front of a file, and particularly in immigration, they write on it in pencil so that it fades over time, and if there's an access request, it can be taken off. I mean, is that something that you've ever encountered in the Commission? Not post-its per se, but sort of side documents that can be removed. I suppose maybe SMSs, and in particular the Commission President's use of SMSs, could obviate the need for post-its, because as it stands, you know, they've yet to be released. And she remarkably was voted in by a Parliament which is only ever shown the disdain of not publishing correspondence.
I think the issue is accountability, and I sense a certain frustration, you know, from certain members here who have spoken about the difficulties in getting accountability from the Commission at times. And I suppose the question is, can the existing accountability mechanisms keep pace with events? You know, the Jean-Claude Juncker, no, it was Madame von der Leyen, I think, it was Jean-Claude Juncker who described the Commission as a political commission. And then it was Madame von der Leyen, President von der Leyen, who described it as a geopolitical commission. Now, I'm not sure what citizens understand by that. I'm not sure what any of us are supposed to understand by that. But we do know that the pace of events is certainly in terms of geopolitics, China, Trump, all of that. The Commission and the institutions are being forced to make decisions very rapidly. And the challenge then is to see whether the accountability mechanisms, including committees such as this, can keep pace with that. I don't know what one does if one doesn't get accountability. I really don't. I mean, if in relation to, I don't want to keep going on about the text messages, you know, we fail to get it, Parliament hasn't been able to get it, will the ECJ be able to get it? And if not, then what? It is an issue. I mean, you had a list of complaints that we had dealt with, or statements that I have made. And I suppose I make them, and I take them from the point of view of somebody who greatly values the EU. And in a world as challenged and challenging, and where the rule of law and democracy is so challenged, I mean, this has to be a place where the highest standards are held to, even if it is difficult at times, even if it is politically sensitive or complex or all of that. I absolutely get that. But once that begins to erode, then a lot of things fade, including democracy. As for post-its, no, thank God we haven't had a complaint in relation to that. And fading pencil marks. I mean, I think in relation to that, if somebody is making a record on post-its with pencils, that is maladministration, plain and simple. And I think if we were to get a complaint on that, that is likely to be what we would find. We may never find the message that was written on the disappearing post-its, but we would find, I would imagine, maladministration in relation to very poor record keeping.